Tim Petrowich here for Dateline Marion, and that's our weekly visit with Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. And the Wildcats are now 2-0, and Coach did a little research. First time since 2012 Marion's won its first two games of the season. That year the Wildcats went 3-0 to start the season.
Yeah, it's been a while, and of course I knew that because we've been battling to get off to a better start for several years now, and a lot of it is my inability to get my guys ready, and a lot of it is the fact that some of our toughest teams fell at the beginning of the schedule, and we embarked on having to face tougher opponents early in the season, and I think in some ways it strengthened our program, but it certainly got us off to a slow start every year, and really put yourself behind when you fall 0-2, 0-3 to start the season, and even a 1-1 record is dramatically different than an 0-2 or 0-3 start. And so it was nice to get out of the gate fast and get out to a 2-0 start, and but didn't get any easier. I think some of our toughest games left on the schedule are going to fall here early.
2-0, you've had seasons like you said where it's been 0-2, 0-3,
Yeah.
1-2. So in this consistent run of playoff years, and I know you don't want to look that far ahead, but at the same time, when you're trying to keep that streak going, 2-0 makes that a lot easier to do.
Well, it does. I mean, and again, the schedules fall differently. You may have a year where, since I've been here, since 2002, it's funny how teams are up and teams are down, and things change. And we've seen Centralia really bad, and we've seen Centralia really good. We've seen Mount Vernon really good, Mount Vernon really bad. I mean, and I think so. The schedule tends to lean one way for a while, then all of a sudden the end of your schedule gets tougher, and then the middle part's the toughest. It's funny how it changes over time.
Sure.
But we've just been through a lot as a conference, and we've seen things. And that's just high school football. It's just having teams kind of ebb and flow a little bit over time, and I don't think this year's any different. But I think the non-conference part of our schedule has remained a really tough part of our schedule. I think we've tended to play teams that have really had good seasons when we scheduled them, and that's exciting. We played Haywood County, and they had one of their best years in school history. Galesburg went through maybe some of their best teams when we played them non-conference. Dunlap certainly had their best team in school history when we had them on the schedule. Champaign Central had one of their best teams in a very long time when we had them on the schedule. So we bring out the best in people. So, I think it's exciting. Highland is no different. Highland is going through one of their strongest runs of success that they have ever seen, and they're a pretty storied program. So. I've got to buckle it up and play because there's some good teams.
I want to talk about Highland in just a minute, but let's talk a little bit about last week's game against Jerseyville. And it wasn't without some anxious moments
Sure.
that the Cats got to be 2-0. And for a team that started out 0-2, they looked pretty good Friday night.
I talked to the kids on Thursday before the game that I had watched one more intense round of film, and I said, I just let the game play. I stopped stopping it and running it back and forth. I just wanted to let it play, let plays run. And I got a sense as I watched that this was a team that played hard every snap. So I told my kids Thursday, I said, forget about scheme, which is challenging enough when you face an option team or whatever. I said, the thing that concerns me the most is the fact that they play hard every snap. And I think Friday night they played hard every snap. We had a chance to really extend that lead in that ball game in the second half, and because they just kept coming after us, the game was in doubt almost to the very end. And so a lot of credit goes to Rick Johns and his staff because they had their kids ready. And you're right, that's a pretty good 0-2 football team.
You talked about the option offense and the fact that you could do well and stay
Right.
home and make your assignments, but
Yeah.
one breakdown at any particular time could be costly. And you did that. You played. There were a lot of times where you played your assignments really well and they didn't get anything, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's a 15 or a 20-yard
Yeah,
game.
you're exactly right, and that is the option, and it plays into your own discipline. You have to be a very disciplined team. And even if you are disciplined, when the person assigned to the fullback or the person assigned to the quarterback misses a tackle, the whole process breaks down because you have the right guy assigned there, but he's still got to make the play. Just because you have it assigned doesn't mean he'll make the play. So the option is a really neat offense. Having grown up as an option quarterback in high school, I have a lot of respect for it, and I know what it can do. I've coached against enough option teams and know that it can be a really, really difficult thing to stop. And I thought Coach Dunning, Coach Wimberly, Coach Warner really had our kids playing at a high level to contain that. The first half, they kept us in the ballgame. We had lots of scoring opportunities early in that game and failed on 4 of them. And we leave halftime with a 6-0. We're down 6-0, and I felt like our defense kept us in it, gave us a chance to win that game in the second half.
You had to feel really good about 6-0 because you talk about the opportunities and 3 turnovers, which none the week before, but 3 turnovers in the first half. It could have been worse.
Could have been a lot worse. And so, we blew opportunities and had turnovers. I mean, things just didn't gel in the first half, and we were able to overcome that with a much better second half.
The second half, you came out and took that opening drive and went down the field and scored, and I think you scored on 4 consecutive drives in the second half, which is more like what we're used to seeing with that Marion offense.
Yeah, well, and you're going to have nights where things just aren't what you want. I mean, there's an old saying that says offenses are the side that's inconsistent. Defenses can be consistent every week, and I think if you can lean your hat on one or the other being more consistent, normally it's your defense. And I thought our defense played well enough to keep us in that ball game until the offense got untracked. And a lot of credit goes to Jerseyville. I mean, they made some plays against us, and they left no room for error. We had a little route issue. We had a hole issue. We were running maybe the wrong hole at times, and just little things they wouldn't let us get away with. If we didn't do it right, they made us pay for it. And so a lot of credit goes to a good opponent that challenged us to either get better or get a loss, and our kids got better in the second half.
There was a particular series in the game which I thought was a big momentum swing. You had got momentum going your way.
Right.
You'd scored twice in a row. It was 6-0, then it was 6-6, and then they took a 13-6 lead, and you came back and got the lead, and then went down and scored again. So you're up 21-13 in the fourth quarter, and you forced a stop, which is what you needed to do.
Right.
And there was a punt, and it was a punt that was, a good one to field and return, and Drake got the ball and mishandled it, and Jerseyville got the ball back right away. And so now you're having your back against the wall with a 1-touchdown lead, and the defense stood up, and on 4th down they had a 4th and 6 and threw a pass over on the right side, and it looked like it was going to be a complete pass for a first down at the last second. Drake, who had dropped the punt, reaches in and deflects it out of the way and creates the turnover on downs. A momentum swing there because, 1, Drake gets redemption for the drop punt, and then 2 plays later you score on the 73-yard pass to put the game out of reach.
Yeah, that's kids are going to make mistakes. I mentioned that earlier, that coaches make mistakes and players make mistakes, and it's not always the mistake you make, it's your ability to make something happen or get redemption or make a play that kind of helps the team out, and don't lose yourself in that mistake. I mean, oftentimes as a coach, you can let a mistake from a previous possession affect your play calling later, or a player can let a fumble haunt him the whole game. And I love the fact that Drake made a mistake. Pretty obvious. He's out there in wide open space making a mistake. But he's a great enough kid and a great enough competitor to overcome that, put that aside, worry about the next play, and do what's best for the team, and be the athlete he can be and make a play that was a crucial play for us. And if he had been sulking and feeling sorry for himself or whatever anybody can do, not just kids but adults too, he might not have been able to make that. And I thought it showed a lot of maturity in him to deal with that and deal with it in the right way.
And then I also thought for the second week in a row that as the game went on, and especially after you went into the change of pace offense and tightened things up a little bit, that on the line of scrimmage you were able to wear them down and to be able to get some yardage. And also, I think that showed on the defensive line of scrimmage too, because you were able to get some penetration in that second half defensively as well. So the line of scrimmage, you won that battle in the second half.
I think so too, and I think as much credit goes to the offensive and defensive lines for our first 2 wins as any other group. I think, that is a part of the game that can remain consistent. We talk about what phase of the game do you find more consistency. Normally it's on defense. Offenses can have a hot hand one night, their timing is right. Sometimes on defense you don't have to worry about that, you just go out and play with great effort and do your assignments. But I feel like the offensive line can be consistent for you week after week, much more than maybe your skill guys can be. And I think as our line continued to play well, even early in the game, us not scoring was not really an offensive line thing as much as just making some mistakes in the other positions. But our line has just done a great job. Coach Skeet has worked really well with these guys, and they continue to grow and get better as a unit, and they communicate well with him between possessions. And so we're going to be leaning on them pretty much throughout the year to lead this offense.
Another long road trip, another Mississippi Valley team. This one is one you're more familiar with, that you've played several times. In fact, you had a series previously, missed a few years, and then resumed that series again. Highland's ranked 5th in the state in Class 5A. That was last week. They've now beaten 2 Class 7A, Class 8A teams in Alton and Belleville East. They pulled away from Belleville East, and they've won 19 consecutive regular season games, and they were eliminated last year in the semifinals, undefeated at that point by the eventual Class 4A state champion in Rochester. So it is a pretty good Highland team that you're facing, and they've got a big weapon coming back. I want to talk about him in just a minute, but talk about this Highland program and success that they've had that really, as you know, in your program, success breeds success, and you continue on year after year.
Do you have any good news? Jeez, that was quite a resume.
You're 2-0 going into the game.
No, I'm just like, wow. And everything you said is true. I mean, well coached, extremely aggressive, assignment sound. I mean, you put the film in and you're looking for these weaknesses because everybody's got them, and you're hoping you can exploit this and exploit that. And there's always things that every team has, but there's a lot of fine lines in between them. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't have any glaring weaknesses. And of course, we've faced so many good teams over the years, and you recognize really good teams pretty quick on film. I thought the Galesburg team that made the quarterfinals, I thought some of the Althoff teams we played, I thought the Morris team, the Olympia Fields team, the Sacred Heart team was.
We know about Sacred Heart.
And the Metamora teams in the past. I mean, so I think the Highland team is in that upper echelon of teams. I think it isn't just a one-year thing. They've done this for several years in a row, and I think you're right. It's going to be a great challenge for our program and for our kids. I thought we gave them a great ball game last year, and we were in that ball game into the fourth quarter, but we made some turnovers in that game that really came back to haunt us because there's so little room for error when we play a team like Highland, and we uncharacteristically had some turnovers in that game that were crucial. I don't know if it's as much as a mistake on our part or they're just a good football team that can force those turnovers, and so some credit has to go to them. Coach Warnicke does a great job. You're right, they've got Sam Laporta. And Sam Laporta is an outstanding football player, defense and offense. He's a big, tall receiver, 6'4", 215 pounds, and he's special, And so it's always nice to see your teams go out and play a team that is highly ranked as they are, with the reputation they're having right now as far as being at the top of the Class 5A. So we got to embrace this. We got to accept what it is and go out and play a better brand of football. We need to play more like our Week 1 performance than our Week 2 performance to be in this ball game. But I'm confident our kids will battle and be in it.
Let's talk about Sam Laporta a little bit, because if you look at the statistics, he is the bulk of their offense, the bulk of their statistics. And it's one of those deals, I think, where they may have some other players they can go to, but you have a guy who's 6'4", and the size that he has, and he's got a little bit of quickness, and he can do some things. So it's like, here it is, stop it. And teams are having trouble stopping it.
They are. And he's a weapon. And I think people underappreciate what he does on defense. And obviously he's a huge part of their offensive side. Big, tall receiver, can he's been double covered, he's been over and under, he's been haloed, whatever you want to call it, and they do a really good job of finding ways to get him the ball, and that's what you should do if you've got a great player. We did that with Jaden last year. We found a way, creative ways to get him the football, and Coach Warnicky does that, I think. And then defensively, he's lurking back there in the secondary, making plays, and so he's special. He's a good player. He's as good of individual players we'll see all season long, and I'm anxious to see how our kids handle it.
Now they do have a first-year quarterback. He's a third-year starter.
Right.
He's got a lot of varsity experience, but first-year's quarterback in Jack Eder. He's been able to get the ball the same in the first 2 games, but is this a situation where maybe, like a lot of teams in basketball try and pressure the point guards to keep it away from the good center? Do you try to put a little pressure on the quarterback so he doesn't see Laporta as much?
You never know. We got all kinds of ideas. So
sure.
And that's certainly one of those things you think about. I think he's a good runner too. As a quarterback, he's got a really good running ability. So he creates another level of challenges for us. And they're a well-rounded team, and they, as I said, their offensive line has a couple of standout kids on it. So they're not a one-guy team. But that one guy they do have is pretty special. But they do have other weapons, and so there's that fine line between containing him to some extent and turning the other kids loose. Because some people like to say, well, we'll stop him and make them beat us with something else. But if you overdo that, they've got the kids that can still beat you with the other kids. And so that's what makes them a challenge for us. And I know Coach Dunning and Coach Wimbo will have a good plan for these guys, but got to go out and execute it, and hope that we can get some breaks, get some turnovers. And that'll be a big part of our success if we can make that happen.
Now, you have talked about these upper echelon teams that the Wildcats have played over the years, a lot of them in the regular season, a lot of them in the postseason too. Historically, it hasn't been very many times where you've been blown out of a game in one of those situations. You've been able to play with these teams. So that has to be a confidence builder for this club to know that, we are, and you played a pretty good Rochelle team in week 1.
Yeah.
So, and beat them. So, there's that thing where, we can stay in this game long enough that if we're in at the end, we got a chance to win.
Yeah, we've battled some of these teams, and, we've been in a lot of these games. We were in the Morris game late. We beat Galesburg. The first year we played them up at Galesburg. The next year they came here and beat us. The Metamora, we played twice, and the first time, not a close game. Second time, much closer game. So I wouldn't say our Sacred Heart game was a close game, but
No, but last year Dunlap, you're tied in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and the year before against Dunlap, we went to overtime with them.
Right.
So I feel like we've been in them. We've been competing. Our kids have shown that they can play at that level. It's just, we don't go into the ball game conceding anything. We're going to give it everything we've got, and we feel like, keep it close and get a chance to win it late, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's hard for us at this point in time as a program to look at anybody and be overly intimidated, because we've played so many good teams that it's just an idea of just respecting what they do and elevating your game.
Well, and when you have 6 guys that rushed the ball and 5 different guys that caught passes in week 2, after 6 guys that rushed the ball and 7 different guys that caught passes in week 1, Marion's kind of hard to guard too.
I hope so. I hope that we're showing that we've got more than 1 or 2 weapons here and there. We can be we talked early in the first week of the season about being our success by committee, and I still believe that's who we are. And we need to spread the ball around to a lot of people. We need to get a lot of people involved, because we're not a one-man kind of football team. We're going to have to be that kind of team that everybody contributes, and it's a collective success. And so, yeah, we'll try to initiate the same thing, and we've got a game plan to try to do some things against them, and try to make them uncomfortable, and try to exploit some things we think we can exploit, and as I said, keep it close and try to win it late.
I know we're kind of getting long, but I want to ask this question because this is something that hasn't really been dealt with over the last few years, and that is that there's a tropical storm system that's scheduled to be in this area by this weekend, and so possibility of rain on Friday night. Does that help or hurt the Wildcats? Do you practice for something like that, or how do you approach that?
We'll prepare for it. I mean, we do wet ball drills, and we'll prepare our kids for that. It's so much easier when you play on turf than it is on grass.
Sure.
And when you're on grass, it's a whole other level of preparation because of the surface. But our turf will stay relatively dry and won't be that slick even if it's raining. The ball becomes the issue, but when you play on grass, then the ball becomes one factor, but the footing becomes another. And so, we got our eye on that. We'll keep track of that pretty carefully over the course of the next few days and see what happens. But that's certainly something we have to make preparations for.
And just like normal, the Wildcats fans traveled pretty well last Friday.
Yeah, they do. And it was a long trip. We had some traffic issues on the way up to Jerseyville with a wreck on 57. Still had a nice crowd there, and we appreciate that. And we have great fans and great parents, and we'll just try to travel well again. Highland's not quite as far, and it's a great place to see a game, so hopefully we'll have a good crowd.
All right, at Highland this Friday night, 7 o'clock kickoff, the Wildcats and the Highland Bulldogs. That's Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich.